News4Jax presents 3 broadcast news veterans working 2 decades or more in one city. They're sharing WJXT memories, stories you've never heard, and plans for the future. This is a celebration of dedication, passion, and commitment. The retirements of Frank Powers, Jim Piggott, and Tom Wills.
As we celebrate their decades of commitment to the Channel 4 team and their commitment to the communities of Jacksonville, we invite to our conversation Tom, Jim, and Frank. Tom, as you know, legendary newsman who has been with us here at Channel 4 the past 49 years.
Oh.
Yeah, but in the news biz even longer than that. Jim Piggott, legendary in his own right. He started with Channel 4 in 1996. You have a 49-year news career, beginning when you were just 18 years old. Yeah. And Frank Powers.
Hi.
Our listeners and viewers are going, who the heck is that?
The guy that answers the phone.
The glue that holds the bricks together.
Yes. Frank, I want you to know, is the brain trust of our newsroom. I wrote down some notes. He controls the heartbeat as manager of our assignment desk. He assigns reporters and photographers to stories and locations. He reviews their scripts before you see them on TV. And he has many of the city's movers and shakers in his cell phone on speed dial.
And he was in radio.
I don't do speed dial.
You just do dial. That's okay.
But you know his voice from radio.
Yes. Well, Frank, you weren't always behind the scenes.
20 years of news radio. As they say, I have a face made for radio.
And that voice is just booming. I mean, we can hear it.
Well, that helps. My uncle was in radio in Providence, Rhode Island. And I remember my parents taking us down to visit him, and we would sit in the booth and watch him do his show, and I guess it sort of sunk in. So
where did you start in radio? Where are you from?
Newburyport, Massachusetts, my hometown station. And then I went to a station in the Boston metro area, and from there, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then from there, here in 1996, WOKV. And then landed on the assignment desk in 99, and here I still am for another few weeks.
So you went from Massachusetts to Oklahoma.
That was culture shock, let me tell you.
Oklahoma played a big part in your career.
It was formative, that's the word, yes. A little guy from New England wound up out on the plains chasing tornadoes and immersing himself in the criminal justice system.
And I know you and I have talked about this, and I know it's a very sensitive topic, so you don't have to get deep into it, but why did you end up leaving Oklahoma and choosing?
Well, something happened in 1995 is the Oklahoma City bombing, which to this day remains the most important story I've ever covered. Yeah. And it changed me in many levels, and a year later we decided that we needed a change. And I started looking around and found a job opening at WOKV for their morning anchor, and wound up here in September '96, barely over a year after the bombing. But I needed a change. And
there was a lot going on there besides the bombing. That means stuff was happening after that.
I witnessed my first execution just a few weeks before the bombing.
My goodness.
You know, you've had friends pass. And
a couple of friends, the DA there happened on Thanksgiving weekend, and then the congressman, who was a good friend, right around Christmas. So it was just, things were happening, and I just felt that a change was needed. I do miss chasing tornadoes, though.
What about it do you miss?
Catching them.
Well, clearly you survived them.
Right, my wife didn't want to listen on the radio, but you catch a tornado by waiting for it to pass by, and then you get in behind it, and then the things you see from there, hopefully it's just, one going through an empty prairie, which there are a lot of it in Oklahoma, and it's just a magnificent sight, but the ones that then plow through some little old town, those are tough to cover, too.
And this was a special skill, because you're talking radio. I mean, TV, we can just step back and let people see stuff.
Oh, yeah, so I'm driving a news unit with one hand on the wheel, the other hand on the two-way radio, going about 60 miles an hour, telling them about the tornado that just took out a line of telephone poles on Route 66 in Catoosa.
Which gives you such insight now to be able to handle what you're doing now, which is assigning crews to things which sometimes are dangerous. And
yes, and I've told a few people going out there, don't worry, I won't get you killed.
Yeah, and one of those people you've had to wrangle is like holding down a wet cat. That one right there. No.
No, this one.
You, Jim Piggott. Jim, you have been doing
For some
TV
time.
for how long?
Well, TV, radio, I'm like Frank. I started in radio. I know in my first year in college, I was working at a radio station. And then from then on, it's been news, radio, ever since. It's in my family.
Tell us about that. You know, your dad?
My dad was like the voice of Indianapolis at one time. I'm from there. He had radio, television, and he was just all over Indianapolis. And I come from a family, well, there's 9 kids. And my dad's radio show was about our family, everything growing up in there. And with the man that used to do news with him, Glenn Weber, that's how they began talking. So it was instilled in me to work in broadcasting at that time. And I mean, there's great stories with my dad. My dad is my inspiration for this, but my oldest brother too, also in news. And he did a lot of news. And then in West Lafayette, Indiana, Purdue University, television up there as well, but radio. Then at Purdue University ran their, like he was our PR person of that. And the voice of Mackey Arena for basketball. So it's just something that has been in my family, and I'm so proud to be able to do this, because there was a time I worked with my dad in radio at WIBC Radio in Indianapolis, and we worked together. My name then was Jim Vincent, because we didn't use that's my middle name. And there was a time when my brother was on the air, a story we did. My dad was the news anchor, and I was on the air. So it's just something, I'm just so proud that I was able to do this. And I was so proud to be able to go back and show Dad from when I came here to Jacksonville from Indiana, because I worked in television in Indianapolis and in Fort Wayne, Indiana as well. But to come here and to show him Channel 4 and to the legacies that have been with Channel 4, because working here, that was a milestone for me. There was such an honor to work at Channel 4. I mean, it was a privilege. When I went to college, one of the professors in journalism, Dick Yoakum, wrote about Channel 4, knew the former news director here, and the name is spacing me. It'll come right back to me. I'm sorry, it's the age thing.
That's okay.
But the big news director.
The big news director? Which one? They're all big.
Like Stutz?
No, before Stutz. But in the
Mel
80s.
Martin?
No. Yeah, Mel Martin.
Mel Martin. Oh,
yeah, worked
yes.
with Mel Martin. Anyway, wrote about Channel 4 and what was happening here, and to be able to come here and work here at that time. I just remember it was just a great privilege to do that from Channel 17, because I came down and worked at Channel 17, the number 3 station in the market at the time. And, you know, we saw Tom, we saw everyone that was over here, Deborah Gianolis, the reporters over here. And so when I came, and you were here even at that time too, Joy, there was the 3 women, and we won't get into that. But
we had fun back then.
We did.
A lot of fun.
There were actually 4 women, because Kim Vardas too. But
that's right.
But it was such an honor, and you remember what it was like working here then, and that's what I'm going to miss here.
Channel 4 has always been the bomb diggity.
It was.
You know?
It was, and it was just amazing, and it was a great way to start working here at that time.
And Tom.
You know, you could subtitle this conversation we're having, instead of 3 amigos, the 3 refugees from radio. Because I also got my start at radio on the campus of American University a long, long time ago. I can still see where the upperclassman, Rusty, was standing at the door of WAMU, and his wee little freshman came by with our red and blue beanies on during orientation. And Rusty had a fishnet out trying to grab people as they went by, because he was trying to staff the college radio station, which went on the air at 5 in the afternoon every day and lasted until midnight. He needed announcers. He needed disc jockeys. And I walked by and he invited me in. I mean, you know, the first week at college, you're lost, you're overwhelmed. I'd already been to the theater and they blew me off. They weren't interested in me at all. Go away, kid, we don't bother with you. But I got to that radio station, and he said, I'm going to audition you. Well, I'd been the captain of the debate team in high school, and Mr. White, one of my favorite teachers, was encouraging me with public speaking. And so Rusty gave me some wire copy. Remember the yellow paper from the UPS, UPI machine, right? And so I'm up there reading this. He said, "Oh, you have a wonderful voice. Would you like to sign up for a radio show?" Oh, okay.
That's how you started.
I'd never been inside a radio station in my life. The next thing you know, I'm doing the 7 o'clock news on WAMU AM 5 nights a week. And there was a radio announcer in Pittsburgh on my favorite station, KQV, Al Julius, who had a gimmick. When he would finish the newscast, he would say, "This is Al Julius." So I stole it from him. I finished the 7 o'clock newscast. I say, "This is Tom Wills." They ate it up.
Well, how did you transition from radio to TV?
Well, it was a very gradual process. I worked at a variety of radio stations in the Washington area. I was at Winx Action Radio. In fact, Sam Kavaris and I worked at that same radio station 10 years apart. He was selling time when I was 10 years after I was a disc jockey
Washington,
there.
D.C.
I worked at Weem in Arlington, Virginia, and then there was an ad in Broadcasting Magazine that WTOP was going to go all news instead of talk, and they were looking for news people. And so I sent a tape, and Jim Snyder, who is my godfather, my mentor, hired me. He was building this staff for this all-news radio station. He was the former producer, the Washington producer of the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite. When he left to go to WTOP, Cronkite came down from New York and tried to talk Jim out of leaving, but he'd had enough of the CBS bureaucracy and he wanted to do something different. And so he's hiring these basso profundos from Philadelphia, Los Angeles, New York, and he hired 2 kids. I was one of them.
Wow.
For this all-news radio station. And that led to, eventually I was doing Morning Drive, and in 1975, he took me out to lunch and said, "How would you like to go to WJXT in Jacksonville and be the weekend anchor?" Now, I knew that the company, the Graham family business, the Washington Post company, owned 2 TV stations in Florida, and he didn't say Miami. So by process of elimination, he must have been talking about the other TV station. Came down here, was hired to be the weekend anchor, and here I am.
Wow. And you have been here 49 years.
Guilty.
Guilty. Almost as long as you've been married.
Almost. Gina and I will be married 50 years on September 21st.
And how does she feel about you?
You know, the amazing thing is, we were Washington gay blades. We had just been married, and I come home and say, "Hey, they want to send me to Jacksonville." And she said, "Okay."
Wow.
I mean, we were Washingtonians. She's from Philadelphia. I'm from Pittsburgh. We're going dating at the Kennedy Center. We're going to the arena stage. I mean, Washington is a bubble. And when you're in that bubble, as far as you know, that's the only world. There is no other world outside of that bubble. And when we got here, we found out there is a world outside of the Washington, D.C. bubble, and we fell in love with Jacksonville.
And you stayed.
And we stayed.
You thought you were only going to be here for a little bit and hightail it out of here.
Well,
nope.
When Jim approached me, he said, "Bill Grove, the Walter Cronkite of Jacksonville television. Bill started the news here, 15-minute newscast at 6 o'clock. Right. Bill was coming up, approaching 25 years on television, and Jim felt, as the vice president for news of the entire group, Post-Newsweek, Jim felt that it would be a good idea to try to start grooming somebody who might be able to take over from Bill. But there was no guarantee. First of all, I had done about 5 minutes of television in Washington, D.C. I anchored the 1 o'clock news on Christmas Day. If my mother had lived in Washington, she wouldn't have been watching, okay? But I mean, that was my big TV experience in terms of anchoring. But give me this opportunity. But when we came here, in the back of my mind, it was like, they're sending me down to the minor leagues, put some polish on me, and then we'll bring me back to Washington. I'll take over that 1 o'clock news from Bob Dalton. By the way, Bob went on to do that newscast for 25 more years while I'm here in Jacksonville. Bob did very well, and I did even better.
Wow. And you know, what's always been very impressive is that for all of us, there are things in our private lives that we're talking about that you can't talk about or show or really discuss in public. And I want to talk to each of you about
So you're going to
things.
ask us anyway?
I'm going to ask you anyway, because now's the time. It's a podcast.
So
You can
what,
ask
you're
whatever.
looking for skeletons? Is that it?
I want to know, you know, Tom, there was something about you that really impressed me. All this time that you've been working, you have a brother that you were taking care of who lived in Pittsburgh, and you were flying back and forth while you were working full-time here, taking care of him, largely in part to a promise you made to your mom before she passed.
Well, my brother Bob was born in 1950, and when he was born terribly disabled with cerebral palsy. He never was able to walk. He had no use of his arms. His speech was heavily affected. I still remember, you know, Scott Johnson is doing this wonderful podcast on wrestling. My younger brother, before anybody could figure out how to get him upright in a chair, he would lie on the floor on a quilt and watch studio wrestling on Channel 11 in Pittsburgh. He was very young. He loved that wrestling. And that one, anyway, he wound up living till he was 68. When my mom died in 2006, I was his guardian until he passed in 2019. And I tell people, if you're unfortunate enough to be developmentally disabled, try to be developmentally disabled in Pittsburgh, where they have this house of angels called Allegheny Valley School in Coriopolis, because my brother lived there from 21 years of age until he passed in 2019. And they took extraordinarily good care of him. But every time they called, I went. And in the last 3 years of his life, he was in very poor health and constantly going to the hospital, constantly riding in ambulances and all this kind of stuff. And you know, I had to make the decision when the doctor called and said, Mr. Wills, we really need to switch your brother to palliative care. And I knew that's what my brother would have wanted, that he had enough of riding in ambulances. You know, it's just, everybody in a family faces difficult joy. I know you've had a difficult time, you know, having to take care of your mom and everything. It's part of life.
Yeah.
But unconditional love, my younger brother loved his big brother absolutely unconditionally. And we had the Pirates and the Steelers and the Penguins. But I have to tell you, since Bob is gone, I can't follow the Pirates anymore. It's just too painful. Because I would call him every Monday night and he would say to me, Pirates stink. So since I don't have that anymore, and the Pirates do stink, I'm over. And I was a Pirate fan from the age of 10, but I just can't follow them anymore.
Tom, you have that memory, and that's what's
Yes,
what's
exactly.
still
I
there.
have that
And the
memory.
fact that you could, I mean, that's just incredible.
Well, I've made so many trips back to Pittsburgh, to my hometown, but everybody's gone now. My mom and dad are gone. My cousins have moved away. My brother's gone. I tell people I'm not making any more trips to Pittsburgh until the Pirates get in the World Series.
That's fair.
I'll let you know.
Hi, Frank.
Where are you going?
You know what? What strikes me about you, you are so gruff in the newsroom. Hey, somebody pick up that phone. Hey,
Never works.
somebody. You know, we never see that softer side of you, but you know what?
It's there.
It's there. And talking to you, I said, Frank, hey, we need to talk about this podcast. Can I talk to you at 7 o'clock? I wanted to talk to you last night. You said, nope.
I'm at my grandson's baseball game.
Are you excited about? You've got 3.
I've got 3. One is 7, one is 6, and one is 3. And I can't envision myself not being a grandfather.
Really?
Yeah. You find a whole new level of love.
Yeah.
And they're all each different individuals. The 6-year-old is the baseball player. The 7-year-old is she's in 1st grade, reading at 3rd grade level already and knows how to play chess. And the 3-year-old, we call her the Red Tornado. She's got red hair and she is a strong business. I joke often and said, God help her boyfriends.
Frank, everything that you have seen and covered news-wise in your lifetime, from the Oklahoma City bombing to here in Jacksonville, murders, shootings, child kidnappings.
Well, yeah, there's a long list of those, unfortunately. The worst two words, and I say this to other people, the worst two words you can hear in this business is missing child. Even worse than tornado warning or hurricane watch.
Yeah.
Because 9 times out of 10, it does not end well. And then drives the news cycle, not just for a couple of days, but weeks, if not months.
And years in some cases.
Haley Cummings, Summer Thompson, Christopher Barrios, they just go on and on and on.
How do you balance that knowledge with surely what you're going to pass on to your grandchildren and the conversations that you'll have with them?
Well, I mean, they're obviously way too young before I talk about those things, but, you know, when you're with them, you watch them like a hawk. You know, we going through a park, Mary sometimes will joke, said, someone's going to grab him. I said, no one's going to grab him, okay? First of all, they'll have picked the wrong kid. But you found that out. You reported a lot of the same things that I did and how your outlook on it changed when you became a parent.
Yeah, I turned crazy.
Right.
Has that happened with you?
It did, sure. I mean, I remember in Oklahoma and here, people that, you know, when you share their grief on a personal level, when you're sitting talking to them face to face, you can't help but absorb that, and then you have to find someplace and somewhere to put it, as I'm sure you have learned as well. You can't wall it off. You just have to give it time to, what happens is it becomes a part of you, but you can't let it become a damaging part to you. And then as you go on to the next one there, what you learn from the last interaction helps you with the next interaction. That's one thing I've tried to pass along to the young reporters who, you know, I've told them, all right, you're going to go talk to the parents of this young lady who was murdered, and they're like, oh, I don't want to. I said, well, you kind of have to. This is part of the job. It's not a pleasant part of the job, but, you know, they want justice, and getting their story out there hopefully will produce the lead that leads to an arrest that gets them justice.
Yeah.
Is it hard to go to sleep at night sometimes?
I've never had trouble sleeping.
All righty.
Never had. My wife has said she wishes that she could sleep like I do. You know, when my head hits the pillow, that's it.
Yeah.
I don't have nightmares. Never have.
Interesting. Jim, Tom, for you, we've all taken stories home with us before. Are there any that have really gotten you attached to them where you're thinking about it outside of work?
I think that happens almost every day in a way when you think about what you do. I go home and kind of take the day and just look at what I did that day. And then, but like as Frank has mentioned, though, when you do see those tragedies that have happened, and like I remember the day of the GMAC shooting here, that was just that was a difficult day because I'd never experienced anything like that where a number of people were killed at a site. Or even the day at the Jacksonville landing over the weekend when that whole situation took place of the mass, well, I guess it was a mass shooting there, but you just remember things like that. And when different events, as with children, when they disappeared or they were killed, it's hard not to take it home, I think. And then I always have to kind of talk about it with somebody, with a friend or somebody. So it does hit home a lot. And the good stories I take home too at times, like, you know, after elections and things like that, I just go, wow, that was just an amazing thing, what we just experienced. And I take that home. And so there's good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the first time was the Leonard Skinner plane crash in '77. I'd only been here 2 years. And the crash was in Gillsburg, and we were staying in Macomb, which is right next to Gillsburg. And the most seriously injured had all been taken to Jackson. And the friends who showed up there beseeched me not to go to the hospital in Jackson, to let these people have their privacy. And I didn't go. Still get emotional.
It's
Because I realized I'm there covering a story. I'm talking about people. But these are real people. And that has stayed with me all these years. That when we go on the 6 o'clock news and we're talking about people who are in the news, those are real people out there. They're not just our subjects. They're not objects. And I just think that's made us, and it's not just me, it's you, I know it's Frank. That's carried to all of us. And I think that's one of the things that has made us successful with our audience, is that somehow they know that we have a humanity here about the people we're putting on the news. You know, and Frank talked about the missing kids, and Jen Waugh just did that incredible story about that child who was saved from a retention pond, and how refreshing that was because of all the children who have not been saved when they went into a retention pond, to have that story. And we feel these things. And, I wound up becoming a personal friend of Billy Powell's. I went to his funeral, met his kids. What a privilege. What a privilege we've all had to be in this business and to meet the people that we have met.
Tom, you were talking of the experience on that, though, but I remember during one hurricane, and recently, and you gave that talk at the end, like, protect yourself, protect yourself.
Yeah, Matthew.
Hurricane. That was
choked up
incredible. I mean.
So please, do whatever is necessary to protect yourself and your family. Err on the side of caution. If you're in one of those evacuation zones, go west, go north, get out of here.
And you took that to heart, and you presented that to people, and I just think that was important, how serious, because there's so many times when we're covering things that we're making, it seems like we're making big news out of it, and it is important, but that was very important, and I remember that well.
That statement was put out by the National Weather Service had that one phrase on it that said, long-lasting catastrophic damage to the coast. Well, luckily the storm took that 20-mile jog away from the coast, and we still had tremendous damage, but that 20 miles spared us a catastrophe for sure.
Can we talk happy stuff?
Happy stuff? We're all about to retire.
With Tom and Deborah Gianolis and Sam Kavaris and George Winterling.
Yeah.
To me, that's the happy times here that I remember.
It's not just the four of us, and at one time we were the longest running local news team in the country. But I just said the other day, how lucky am I as an anchor that I had Deborah Gianolis, Mary Bear, and now I have this one over here, Joy Purdy. I mean, I don't know how many anchors across the country can say that. And plus the fact, all these people back there in the newsroom who make us look good every night.
Yeah.
I mean, this is...
Including this one?
Well, yeah, that one in particular. I mean, we're so blessed.
It is a privilege, as you mentioned, the people that you meet in this business, both working with them and encountering them and telling their stories. And that's one thing, people say, why do you have them on camera when they're in this situation? Because they wanted to talk to us. If they didn't want to talk to us, you can tell by eye contact. What people see is the final product. They don't see the interaction. You don't just run up to people and stick a microphone in their face. You talk to them about things and then ask them, are you all right with talking about this? If they say no, that's fine. If they say yes, then we talk to them.
Yeah.
We're not intruding on them.
Yeah. There's a whole conversation that happens before those cameras start rolling,
Yep.
even though folks only see
They never
the
see
part
it,
that
right.
starts rolling.
Not always.
That now, you're
Not
right.
always.
You're right.
Because sometimes you just got to go and you got to go get the news.
Well, that's what you do.
Well, that's what.
How did you start doing that? You have become so
Chasing
entrenched.
people into elevators.
Especially city hall, local politics, state politics. How did you get so entrenched in that and so connected?
Well, I think that was, everybody did that, Joy, and you and I were talking about that the other day. There was a time when news was done, it was the beat system. And like somebody would cover school board, somebody would cover city hall, somebody would cover the courts, police. And I was when I started here, I started out as the troubleshooter, as a consumer reporter. And I loved it. You helped people and all that. And then Jim Murphy was here at the time. And he had left, and then they had me take over as city hall reporter and I think it was Heather Vanessa came in.
She was the consumer reporter.
Yeah, then she came in. But I started then at City Hall, and at that time, you did that every day. You began your day at where your beat was. Police reporters went down to the police department, went through papers, went through police reports. It wasn't just me, it wasn't just us, but everybody did that. That doesn't happen anymore. People don't do that. But I learned that at City Hall. To get a story, I had to go every day down there and see what's happening. Talk to, not the politicians, but talk to the receptionists, talk to the people that really run the city, and there you get the stuff. There you know what's going on. That's why I still do that today. I don't be in here, whatever, but I start my day at City Hall, and it's amazing. Like I said, there used to be 5, 6 reporters there.
2 now?
It's just me. And I hate that, because that's how television news has changed, but all news. But everybody says, oh, but it's so much better because now it's all social media and everybody gets connected. But I also think we're losing something. But that's just me. I'm the old guy that's leaving. I'm old school, and that's the way. But that's the way it is.
You've been getting some great stories. All these people know you. They all know you, and they'll tell you things on the side. I mean, Ed Austin, our mayor, years ago, told you first that he wasn't going to run for re-election.
Only because I went there every day.
Because you went there every day, and he saw your face and he knew you.
Right, and well, that's what I think is important. Is you just got, and I love holding government and politicians accountable.
But
and
you
wonder
do it in
why
such
I chase, because they need that's what's important, and I want the questions answered. I mean, I could ask the question in a news conference, but when they don't answer, you got to track them down. And they may hate me for that, they may not, but they may hate, but you got to get answers.
But Jim, you are able to do it in such a way that you're not intimidating to them. You ask it directly, but it's not like you're browbeating them.
That's right.
You know,
not
like
mean, Jim.
You're just you just calmly ask questions.
Well, I'm persistent, I will say.
Persistent.
And they know that.
That's a good, I like that.
Yeah.
But you know, that's a skill.
Well, but I think it's a skill, and I hope we pass that. I hope we pass on the skills. But there's a lot of new things to learn too, and I understand with the high technology, with social media, there are things with that I don't understand, but I know it works as well. So, but I hope we can combine.
Nothing beats the personal touch.
Yeah.
When gathering news.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Joy, you've done that. I mean, you know that. You know what it was like when we used to always, when you had a beat to cover. And I just hope that we don't lose something by not doing that.
Yeah.
Though I know, some things are going to, we are having somebody that's going to continue City Hall. Ashley is going to continue City Hall for us, or what, our little secret maybe, but we will make sure that it is covered.
The boss is going to play Jim Piggott recordings for every new reporter who's hired. Look at this.
Especially chasing people out of federal court.
Exactly. No, chasing the mayor to the elevator, that's the classic.
We'll be playing that for weeks. You do know that.
Well, we'll see how that, it's already, the repercussions are coming back, but we'll see.
Well, what are you most proud of? Tell me that.
I'm most proud of working here, to be honest. Out of my broadcast career, it's working here at Channel 4. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud to be working with these guys and with you. Story-wise, I mean, working along with the Times Union on JEA, they were way on top of that. But being there when all of that came out, I love that. I loved covering some of the storms. Were just incredible things that will always be remembered.
And you're talking about JEA, the scandal,
and all of that, and just the continuation of that.
2000.
Yeah. In the 2000 election.
Yeah.
The elections are big to me. They're so important, and that's maybe. I hope to continue, at least be a poll worker when I'm done. That's how important I think elections are, and that's why I love covering elections.
Wait. So you, after you retire, you want to be a poll worker?
I would love to do something, if it's working the polls as a poll worker, because I know how important that job is. I would love to do that, and I hope to be able to do that too.
What about supervisor of elections?
That's elected.
Exactly.
No, but I'm saying there are things like that, and I've said this to people that say I'm kidding. I'd love to work a garbage truck. I would love that. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think you meet so many people. That's what I like to do. Yeah. It would keep you in shape. I respect that job, and I mean, things like that. Things I haven't been able to do, I want to do. And that is the truth. Everybody goes, you're kidding. I go, no, I'm not. But
interesting. Did you see how you didn't answer supervisor elections? I'm just saying, he didn't answer that question.
Anybody who
we
runs
have people
for
in
elected
broadcasting that are
office
mayor, people that used to work here that are now the property appraiser.
Yes.
Well, Ernie Mastriani. There's a lot of people in news that have moved on to politics. City government, I wouldn't mind working at. I don't know if I mind. I don't know if I know I could. There's some things I could not do.
Okay. Frank, what are you most proud of?
Making a difference. I have on my computer at the assignment desk, I have a little thing there that says Luke 1:2-4-8. And that's my favorite Bible verse. That is, of those to whom much has been given, much will be expected. So that goes to, I don't have a problem sleeping. If you can look at the face in the mirror at the end of a tough day and say, all right, no regrets, give my best, then you've had a good day, even if you've covered really bad content.
What are you going to do next?
I don't know. I might chase storms again.
Really?
I mean, that's nothing that's more fun than chasing storms. On a day like today, I wouldn't have to be stuck at the desk. I could go out and get video maybe. I'm going to write photography. I'll do some volunteer work, see more of my grandkids' activities.
If you're going to chase storms, please don't become our lead story and get caught by a storm, okay?
Well, chasing storms in Florida is not the same as chasing storms in Oklahoma.
No,
those are the ones that little
sure.
towns cease to exist. Here, they're swamp skippers. Maybe tear off a few shingles and knock over some fences, but that's about it.
Oof. They can hit pretty hard, too.
They can be hard,
They can be very hard. You talk to people who are still recovering from some of these storms. Just please be careful.
I'm trained.
Okay. Tom, what are you most proud of?
In 49 years, it's hard to pick out one thing. We've made such a difference in the quality of life since I've been here. The smell of money. When Gene and I first flew into Jacksonville in April of 1975, as the plane was on approach, we smelled the turpentine in the cabin and that sweet, sickly smell of the paper mills. We'd flown to a lot of cities even before we met and never had an experience like that before. And 10 years later, Channel 4 did a documentary called The Smell of Money with Jerry Levine. And Tommy Hazouri was a shrewd enough politician to pick up on that and begin to crusade. And you don't smell turpentine or paper mills anymore when you fly into Jacksonville. Well, Channel 4 did that.
And it was horrible.
It was horrible.
That smell was horrible.
Well, the point of the documentary was to reveal to the public that there were about 100,000 something or others of pollution going into the air here all the time as a result of the mills. And the powers that be said it was the smell of money. We're making money. That they're paying taxes and all these other kind of things. Yeah, but the place stinks. Well, it doesn't stink anymore, does it?
No.
But again, we put the spotlight on it. We don't change things. We put the spotlight on things. And then Hazouri was a shrewd enough politician to make that an issue while he was running for mayor. And he got it fixed. It's gone. And then when the JTA raised tolls on Butler Boulevard, Mel Martin, the news director, said, "Why do we have tolls at all?" And we started reporting on the inefficiency of stopping people on an interstate highway and frisking them for 25 cents so that they could cross the St. Johns River. And there were politicians, Terry Wood, who were shrewd enough to say, well, why don't we put a question on the ballot for a sales tax to see if people will replace tolls? It was close, but the sales tax won. The tolls are gone. We're not frisking people to cross the Fuller Warren Bridge anymore. Channel 4 did that. Not another TV station, this TV station. I got to be here while that was going on. I got to be part of that coverage. But I have to say, the pandemic. I'm broadcasting from a card table in our family room while my co-anchor Mary's in the studio, because we're trying to keep as many people as possible from getting the virus that could kill us. And our coverage was calm, thoughtful, reliable. We helped people get through the toughest time in my lifetime, was that pandemic.
Who knew you could run a TV station with only 8 people in the newsroom?
Yes, we managed. We bounced.
It changed everything. It changed
everything.
It changed
exactly.
Not only our industry, I think for every industry in here, but the pandemic, just think about that and how everything changed that day when they closed everything.
St. Patrick's Day 2020, March 17th, everything closed.
That was it.
What about your future? What about your future? What are you going to be doing?
Well, I have 3 grandchildren too. Adele is 12, Jack is 10, and Wesley's 8, and they don't live here. So they're going to, Grandma Gina and Grandpa Tom are going to inflict more of ourselves on our grandchildren.
Well, we're going to see you again.
Yes, I'm coming back. I would like to cover the election, and the station has agreed to let me come back as a journalist emeritus, and I will sit in the seat where Kent Justice has sat. I will sit next to Rick Mullaney, and Kent, of course, will be in my seat. He will anchor our coverage. And this will be my 16th presidential election. The first was Goldwater Johnson on WAMU. I don't know how many of my classmates were listening, but I was dutifully reporting the election results as Johnson swamped Goldwater, and there was a lot of interest on college campuses in that election, because people on college campuses had 2S student deferments protecting them from the draft, which was blatant discrimination, legal discrimination. They were sending kids who weren't going to college, they were sending them off to Vietnam to wind up with their names on the wall, but I'm over it.
Wow.
You know, we've lived through a lot of things that were wrong in our time, and there's still things that are wrong, and Channel 4 will be reporting on things that are still wrong. You know, when Gene and I moved to Jacksonville, the classified ads in the Florida Times-Union said, white women only need apply. What? We were from Washington, D.C. I'd never seen a thing like that before. You don't see that anymore. Racial discrimination is still a fact of life, but it's a hell of a lot better than it was in 1975.
With that insight, what do you tell the next generation? Sure, they've got streaming and social media and all that, but what do you take from your life? What do you take from that guy who started so long ago behind you?
Tell the truth. Don't be afraid of the truth. That's what the viewers trust us for. That's why every time we cover a presidential election here at an independent station, our election coverage is the most watched election coverage in the market. Not NBC, CBS, Fox, okay, MSNBC, or whatever that other one is, MSNBC. Because we have a franchise with the viewers. They don't know. I mean, somebody thinks, there are people out there that think the news media in general is biased. I get that. I get emails from them all the time. Okay, you can't persuade them. I understand that. But they come and watch our election coverage because we're even-handed. We don't have an axe to grind. We're fair. It's a tremendous compliment to this station, but we earn that trust tonight at 6, an ordinary Friday in May, by the news that we do. But tell the truth.
And what always upset me on that same line is when people say, you're lying. You know, you're not telling the truth. And I just want to go, but that always has bothered me, being out on the street, like people would drive by and just start, Mia, you're lying. I'm going, I'm not lying. I mean, I'm trying to give you both sides of everything. I'm not making up the story. It's actually happening. And I think that's where news has, that's where the perception of news has changed a lot, that they believe that we're not telling the truth. And
They're addicted to righteous indignation. They got to be mad at somebody, and so they've picked us to be mad at. I mean, I feel sorry for them.
right.
Or a certain segment of the us,
But you know
depending
what?
on their political beliefs. They don't want to hear what they don't believe. And I don't know how many times I've talked to people on the phone and said the same thing. I don't believe it. I said, well, you know, these are the facts. My job is to deliver them to you. Your job is to do with them as you see fit. If you don't want to believe them, don't.
But when Irma or Matthew are threatening, they put aside their political beliefs and they come right to Channel 4. They don't think we're biased when a hurricane is threatening. They rely on us.
Jim, anything you want to say to that Jim about
you,
what you've
I don't
learned?
remember looking like that. But, my God, where's the gray? No, that's just that it's a good ride. I don't know if it's over. Well, I don't mean that. It is here, I know that, with Channel 4. But, I mean, and I know I'm ready to go do some things, like I had mentioned, that I want to do. I want to collect garbage. I want to work elections. I want to experience some stuff. But I know I will always do something that's going to be, I'm not just going to stay home and sit in front of the TV.
No.
I want to be
Of
out.
course not.
Yeah, but I want to be out and participate. I hope that I will be out and participate. And you know, I just want, and I also I want to enjoy life and enjoy some of the things I've reported on. I was thinking when I was driving into work today, you know, I've never stopped here. I've never stopped here because I'm going, well, you know, now I'm going to be able to walk around in San Marcos some more, or downtown in some areas that I've been that I've just driven past before because I had got to get to work. And so I'm ready to enjoy, but I'm also ready to enjoy this community. Like I said, I've lived here longer than I grew up in Indiana, in Indianapolis, but I've lived here longer, and this is now my life. And I consider myself a Jacksonvillian, if that's such a word, but because it's home, and it will always be home to me, even though my entire family is still up in Indianapolis.
Frank,
Yes.
did you look at Frank?
Yes, he had hair then.
Insight, any insight from your career that you want to tell young Franks coming into this business?
You know, if it's 1978, then sure, I'd still do it again. If I was coming into this business now, I don't know, to tell you the truth. It's changed so often and changed so much, and something has been lost. There was an article in Politico the other day about how the journalism business is losing its swagger, and because of the pressures on us, it gets, you know, I don't want to hear that truth from them. Make it go away. And I have concerns about the people coming into this business and the reasons they're coming into this business, not because they want to get to the truth or tell the truth or go after journalism, it's because they want to become famous and make a lot of money. And that may happen, but it's not going to happen like that. It's going to happen after 30, 40-year careers. And that means you have to be dedicated and invest the time and the blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifice. And I don't know that, that's my biggest fear about where this business is going. That the number of people who realize that's what's needed to succeed is dwindling.
Well, we know that the powerhouses, Jim, you're single, the powerhouses behind these two are the women that support them. You've been married
40 years.
40 years. You've been married coming up on
It'll be 50 in September.
50 years. And I do want to say, Tom, another thing, and we'll wrap with this, but another thing about Gina in particular, she went through a major health scare.
You know.
And you were working, but you were taking time off to go and help her, go be with her, go.
You know, and she is so grateful to our news director, Catherine Bonfield, who never once, I had carte blanche to go. Anytime I needed to go. There was never any question on Catherine's part.
What happened with Gina?
Well, Gina had breast cancer. It was in August of 2021. She found a lump, and she went to the mammogram place over here in our neighborhood. And the tech who did it said, you don't have anything to worry about. It looks like it's just a cut, maybe from when you were shaving. And so Gina went back to get the results and said, no, no, you don't need to go with me because it's just a cut. Well, she gets there and the radiologist begins it by saying, I'm very concerned. What? It's cancer. She calls me to tell me that it's cancer. From that phone call until she was cancer-free, we went together to every doctor's appointment, every radiation treatment, and those chemo treatments. And there was one that the side effects were very difficult, but they made adjustments, and they were, I wouldn't say they were a walk in the park afterwards, but they were not as bad as that first one was. I call her she who must be obeyed. I've said that so many times that a friend of mine just gave me a paperweight with the words she must be obeyed on it. Gina has it on her desk.
Of course.
And people, people talk to me, why retire and this, the stuff that's going on with all of it. Let me tell you, you're not married as long as Frank and his wife have been married, and as long as Gina and I have been married. Sooner or later, the dense husband begins to pick up the cues. And in recent years,
There's hope.
not just once, but at the end of the staycations that I would take, just not a trip, just stay home for a week, chill, read books, maybe eat out, get some takeout, just a staycation, nothing out of the ordinary. When I would be getting ready to go back to work, Gina said to me more than once, if you retired, it would be like this all the time. And I would say, do you want me to retire? No, I don't want you to retire. I want you to be happy. But she said, if you retired, it would be like this all the time. So, guess
hanging
what?
cob.
It's time. And when it's time, you knew it was time to get married, didn't you? When you got married, you knew it was time. When you had kids, you knew it was time. When it's time to retire, it's time. People ask me, how do you feel? Like I was a kid in school and I knew what the last day was? I'm excited. I don't know what the future brings after the last day on television, but I'm excited about the future. It'll be fascinating to see how retirement turns out. I've been a broadcaster since 1964. I started working when I was 14. Yes, delivering the news. I delivered 126 copies of the Pittsburgh Press, 7 days a week. Dad had to drive me around on Sunday because the papers were this thick. I'm ready. Enough already. And you all, this is the other thing, Joy. This is my TV station. I know it's the Graham family that owns it, okay? And I told Don Graham he's now the senior employee because I'm retiring. He's been the second senior employee, and now he's the old guy. He's got it all to himself. I'm leaving this place in great hands. You, Kent, Tarek, Ashley. I'll be watching.
And that's why it was such an honor to work here, right there. No, I'm serious, Tom. I mean, that legacy is just incredible to work for.
The outlook.
Yeah. It was like, oh, I'm here, and that's when I started, that's what it was. Like I said, I worked Channel 17, and we would look up to Channel 4, like, that's great. And it, it was.
And then you became Channel 4.
Well, no, I was lucky to be here with Channel 4.
That's the way most of us feel. We feel lucky to be here.
Yeah.
To have taken part in so many historical events.
Yes. And there have been so many, as we've been talking about.
And to work with so many incredible people.
Yep. Yep, that have moved on and have done some great things.
Yeah.
You know.
That makes me smile, too. A lot of the reporters who came to Channel 4 from small markets thrived and grew here, and now they're in Atlanta, they're in Los Angeles, Boston, Tampa, Orlando, Miami, Dallas, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Detroit. I mean, that's a legacy.
Frank's Angels.
Yeah. Or they're like Kim Balistreri, who just got rich.
And some come back.
Every now and
They
then.
do.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Can't
Gentlemen.
come back and come back stronger, Joy. Yeah.
You guys make a great team, an awesome team.
It's been fun.
And we're going to miss you. We're going to miss everything about you.
You won't have time
Won't have time for what?
to miss us.
Mrs., you got a lot of work to do.
You know, this is what these people are watching. This has never happened before. The four of us sitting around and talking because we're all too busy working.
Who has time
to
for
sit
that?
around and talk? This
what I
is
just
like
said.
a gift to the four of us.
Right. On a Friday afternoon when news is going on, today was a day of storms in Jacksonville. If this was recorded, they probably don't know
Storm
that.
damage?
Yeah, so, but here we are. And I don't know if later on, like when this is going on, and I'm not working, if I'll be able to like be on the phone with who's ever on the assignment desk, which is Frank. Do you know what's happening over here?
He'll be on the other side.
And you're like, oh, that guy's calling again.
Guys, thanks so much. Frank, Jim, Tom, we could talk forever. And I know you all have stories.
It would start to get boring.
No, never. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your time and yourselves with us here and with the station and with the community.
Is it over already? We're done?
I think so.
Okay.